look at tract 8 at the tracts at White River. You can see it here toward the right, right of center of the screen. It's about 10 acres in size. It's basically square. It's about 660 by 660 feet. And it's essentially all wooded other than the easement road that comes into it and ends in about the middle. Now let's just shift this map around a little bit. We're using the MapRight interactive map. You'll find an extremely similar map on the listing page for the property. That might be where you are already. The only difference is it might not have the individual measurements for tract 8, because it's likely that the interactive map will be one interactive map that's used on the pages for all the different tracts, but it's going to look extremely close to this. If we zoom out a little bit, you can see just how close we are to the world famous White River. It's going to be less than a mile to the west. There's actually a river access point, which is fantastic. There are not too many river access points, especially to this part of the White River. So that's pretty special to have that right there. Yeah, I mean, we've talked quite a bit about that on the rest of the listing page and the other main page for the tracts of White River. So we won't go into that too much here, but tract 8 itself, we try not to play favorites. I mean, every tract out here is fantastic. You can see some of them were split more as a square shape, some were split more rectangular, and that was just to make best use of the property, to try to make every tract special. And tract 8, just by the topography of it, is fantastic. We'll zoom in here in a minute and you'll see exactly what we mean. But essentially, the easement road comes into the middle there and ends, and you've got a big wide ridge that goes right to the center of the property, and then the property starts to slope down on all directions from that ridge. So you've got the potential for a view in practically every direction once you're on the property, which is really quite unique. Obviously, with the road ending on the property, you're not going to have any through traffic. It's one of the very few tracks out here where the easement road system doesn't cross through, doesn't dissect the property. It actually goes in and stops on the property. So it's at the end of that particular road. So yeah, you'll have essentially no traffic out there, which is fantastic. To get to the property, you'd come in on Lock 3 Road. So upper right here, this green road, that's Lock 3 Road. It's actually a county road, and it's maintained by the county until the last house, which is not this meadow, but on the other side of the road. So just before you get into the little development is well, maybe it's up here, I'm not sure. But it's just before you get into the development, and there are no houses beyond that, so the county does not maintain the road beyond that. They may if someone were to build a home or cabin out here, but you'd have to talk to them to get the best answer on that. So you do want your four-wheel drive truck or SUV, but you'll take Lock 3 Road west, come over here, and if you were to take a right, you'd be on that short access road that leads you to the river. There's a concrete, like a boat launch that goes under the train trestle and right to the water. It's really cool. Or you can fish right from there. You could potentially put a canoe or kayak or maybe a boat into the water there. To get to the property, you would stay on Lock 3 Road, curves to the left, goes up a hill, not a very steep hill, but it's fairly long. When you get to the top of the hill, look to your left, and you'll see the gate over the easement road, and that's going to lead to all the tracks here, to basically tracks 7 through 36. So we'll get you the directions on how to open that gate. You can head on in and cruise on up to tract 8, which is really not too far. And from here, let's switch to a topo map as we zoom in a little bit and kind of show you the topography here. Okay. So as we said, once you're toward the gate to the property, this last stretch of Lock 3 Road, you'll go up this hill, levels off, go left or go east through that gate to the easement road system, and after a short while that starts to go up another fairly long hill, not super steep, but fairly long. And then here's what's cool about Tract 8. You'll get to the top of that hill a few hundred feet before Tract 8, and then right before Tract 8, it levels off. You've got this wide ridge, and if you look at the topography here, that ridge extends all the way in right to the center of Tract 8. You have a large area that's either level or close to level running throughout the center of Tract 8, and then it's dropping off, sloping down in basically all directions, except level where you came in from the southwest. So you've got the potential, if you've ever seen those properties like in the magazines that they'll have up in the mountains, and they're perched on a little peak so that they can have a view, in 3 or 4 directions. This appears to be a property where you could do that without being high up in the mountains, which is pretty cool. It's just the unique topography of this particular property, Tract 8, that allows for that. If we look down here toward the south side, looks like the start of maybe a little valley. So that might be a cool place to explore and look for caves or springs. Here toward the north side, we have another area. Looking at the topo map, the steepest part is going to be this northwest part. So if you see how closely bunched together these contour lines are, that's indicating that's very steep right there on this particular portion, the northwest portion of the property. Totally different, for instance, from the going straight north from the middle of the property. That is, it's not flat, but it's pretty darn gradual slope downwards if you go north from the center of this property. If you just look at the spacing between these contour lines, that's awesome. Similar going northeast, similar going east, and then if you're going southeast or south, looks like it stays level for a while, and then you can see these lines are close together, so that's going to be steeper as well. The dark line, every 5th line on the topo map on this one is a darkened line, so there's no special significance except that the elevation change between 2 dark lines is 100 feet, because the elevation change between each standard line is 20 feet, and every 5th line is a darkened line. So they basically do that so you can, at a glance, see the 100-foot intervals. So from the middle of Tract 8, that's going to be about, and that's above sea level. That's the 500 foot. So 520, 40, about 560 feet above sea level when you're on the middle of that property. So that's pretty fantastic. Again, extremely close to the White River, which is phenomenal. And why don't we zoom in here and have a look at the actual tree cover on the property if we can. So the Land ID interactive map, you'll be able to do many of the things we can that we're doing right now, as far as moving around, zooming in, zooming out. You can change the base map. Let's go to, there are several different aerials, and you want to try them all because they show the property often either at different times of the year or slightly different, not different views. They're all looking basically straight down. But if we look at this one, this happens to be a nice clear photo taken probably in middle or late summer. And that's showing us that the property is 98, 99% wooded. There are probably some natural open areas. One of the really nice things about the tracts at White River is we didn't see any signs of any recent logging. Every property's been logged at some point, and I'm sure this is no exception, but if it would have been logged in the last 5 or 10 or 15 years, we would have seen all kinds of stumps and still have seen tops, tree tops, and bigger limbs. And I mean, you'll see that stuff, and it'll be very brushy for quite some time after a property's been logged. In this case, we just didn't see that. So, I mean, it looked great. The mixture of trees was fantastic. Just about everything we could think of, from hardwood trees, obviously red oak, white oak, walnut trees, chestnut trees, to some softwood trees as well, some cedars, a few pine trees, more cedars than pines on most of the properties. This one was interesting because it had some sycamore trees, I believe, down toward the north side. Just a few here toward the northwest. But check out the drone video because it does an even better job than these aerial maps do. We're going to switch to a Google map. Google map is usually the most clear, and in this case, this Google map happened to have been taken in the winter. There we go. So granted, that's kind of a boring view of the property, but it's also one of the best views you can get of this property because, again, going back to any logging, had there been any logging done in quite a few years, you would see signs of that in this wintertime aerial. You would see displaced shadows. You would see numerous trees that were down, essentially trees that were either knocked down or they cut and they were hollow, so they left them. I mean, you'd see all kinds of that. And in this case, we're just seeing a good, clean wintertime shot of hundreds or thousands of mature trees. These trees over here toward the northwest, you're getting a different view of those. It's probably because it's just a different angle. So this is where it's sloped more steeply, so that could be why they're showing up looking differently. But again, the drone video is probably a good way to get a better look at the different types of trees. But I mean, you've got just hundreds and hundreds of mature trees on this property. Once it's been paid for in full, you could log it, you could cut that timber to build a cabin or to mill into to lumber. I mean, you've got a lot of options once the property's been paid in full. You can't cut the timber until then. But if you get a hold of us, we do sometimes make written exceptions if you're going to create a building site or a driveway or whatnot, but you can contact us for details about that. But let's go back to aerial. And these other aerial maps as well, sometimes they add value, sometimes not. That one doesn't seem to add too much value. That's even worse. Infrared can be cool, but it's not showing us too much. What you're looking for in the infrared is kind of discolored spots because they can indicate an opening or a glade or a pond. The only thing I see is this little darkened spot toward the east side, but it's hard to say if that's anything other than a shadow. Let's go to that wintertime aerial again. I was thinking maybe that was a tiny pond, but I don't think so. I think that was just a small discoloration. And that's probably a shadow. On a big tract like this, really, I mean, you just have to get in and explore it on foot. Here toward the south side, we talked when we saw the topo map about how that valley was starting there on the south side, and that could be a cool spot to go and look for springs or caves. You can see kind of looks like that would be the center of the valley right there, and that looks like it's had some water flow in it. So definitely check that out if you're looking for a property with a spring on it. It'd be really neat to go and explore that and see. There are certainly caves in this area. There are some nice caves within just a few miles, and from what we've heard from people in the know, the majority of caves have not been discovered yet. So take a good look at this property if you're trying to discover a cave. And we'll go back to the aerial map. So we could go on for a while on tract 8. If we were to hang on to a property just for hunting or to build a small cabin or whatnot, this would be a nice choice in our mind because of the way it lays, the potential for the views, the extreme privacy, just a gorgeous property. So nice location and very, very close to the river. All of these tracts are within about a mile of the river, but this one is just almost a straight shot to the west. You could be fishing and hop on your four-wheeler. You could be fishing in a couple minutes, which is fantastic. So there you have it, tract 8 at the tracts at White River. If you have any questions, please let us know.